So great to be here, and thank you so much for the introduction. How many of you are tweeting during our session today? Raise your hands. How many of you don't know what Twitter is? Okay, for those of you that don't know what Twitter is, you may want to learn quickly. We're going to talk about it a lot throughout the session today. But for those of you that are tweeting, you see my hashtag here, my Twitter handle. You see the ShermTech16, and then you see that hashtag, let's go. So let's see, a few of you, go ahead and tweet that. Take a picture of yourself, your next door neighbor, shake hands, and tweet something, just so we get the tweets going. And then what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in. And I am going to pick the first person that I see their tweet come through that tweeted, let's go, and they actually win a prize. Oh, come on, no one yet. They're coming. I'll let you know in a minute who it is. So the way I like to start my presentations is to really get us thinking about what we're here for. We're here to talk about innovation. We're here to talk about agility. We're here to talk about technology. Now raise your hand if you love technology. Raise your hand if you hate technology. There's a few people that hate technology. Anything that has to do with technology, anything that has to do with what we're doing in the HR space today, all involves imagination. It all involves thinking different. And to be successful, it requires a different lens. So I like to start every presentation with this video.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So we're all here at this conference. We all believe, we have to believe that we can change the world. Which means that we're crazy. Anyone crazy? Anyone think different all the time? Anyone ready to break glass? Lots of different thoughts. Who's Karan Basin? K-A-R-A-N, Basin. Karan, congratulations, you're the winner of my tweet contest. You've now won a new iPad. Congratulations. Karan thinks differently. He was the fastest with his fingers there on Twitter. So what I'm going to ask you to do to start the presentation here is to close your eyes. Nothing's going to happen. But close your eyes. And what I would like you to think about is what is perfect? What is perfect when it comes to the world of HR technology? Okay, so in your world of HR technology and the work that you're doing on a daily basis, what is perfect? Close your eyes. I see eyes. I should see no eyes. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. What is perfect? Okay, you've all got your perfect in your mind. And I guarantee you that almost every one of you's perfect is different. Some of you might say, better data. But if we only had this. Some of you might say, if I could get to the cloud. Some of you might say, social collaboration, mobile. Some of you might say, get me a head count. Some of you might say, get payroll working. You all have something different. Now, in case you haven't noticed, I'm from the United States. Has anyone been following the United States political landscape? Anyone? So here's my perfect. No, just kidding. He's my anti-perfect. He's the furthest thing from perfect. But I thought I would try to infuse a little bit of humor into the presentation. The point is we all have different perfects. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about this perfect storm that is upon us. And the perfect storm that is upon us is made up of three key components. It's made up of an understanding and components of people. The people in the workforce, the people in the HR function, the people that we communicate with on a daily basis. It's made up of process. So when we think about process, it's made up of processes and all of the different processes that go into HR. How do I hire someone? How do I fire someone? How does someone change their address? How does someone do performance management? Do I measure engagement? Do you know how many processes the average HR department has? I did this work about 2 years ago. 970. 970 processes. That's insane. That's a lot. And then the third component is technology. Now people say, whoa, we're at an HR technology conference. Why is that third? I'll share with you in a second. Now that polling we did before, what I'd like to do is I'd like to launch a poll. And I'd like to ask you this question. What is your biggest concern today regarding HR technology in the future? Is it selecting the right solution? Is it creating a business case? Is it keeping up with technology, or is it having the skills to support that? Now, these are questions that someone like myself who speaks and consults on a daily basis with organizations are asked all the time. And this is great polling technology. Usually I try to guess ahead of time which one's going to win. We're going to wait 30 more seconds. 56 votes. 58% so far selecting the right solution. Interesting. Business case, not so high. Keeping up with technology, a little. Skills to support. So, I'll tell you something about the Indian market. I was told that you like data. Here's some real-time data. I do this a lot. I've never had number one be over 50%. Anywhere in the world. Over 50%. Now, what does that mean? I'm not telling you yet. But the fact that over 50% are their biggest concern is selecting the right solution tells me that the next 20 minutes you may want to pay attention to. Okay? Let's move on. So people, process, and technology. To think about the people side and to think about where we're going, we have to do a quick look at where we've come from. Most of us, how many of you have implemented a piece of HR technology? Raise your hand. High. 90% of the room. Most of us have said we're putting in HR technology, but we've put in technology that does payroll, and it might do a little bit of HR. Nods of heads or shakes of heads. The first thing we do is we say, we got to get payroll live. People have to get paid, right? Of course. And then we're going to get to the HR stuff later. Has everyone heard of later? Later equals never. There's my equation, number one equation. Later, oftentimes, equates to never. Because we get so busy in the tactics, we get so busy in the reactive, that we forget that what we did is we originally were going to get an HR system, and we end up with something that's doing payroll. Now, payroll in an old system compared to payroll in a new system, how different is it? Is the paycheck different? The paycheck's exactly the same. It might be a little more efficient. It might be in the cloud. It might be somewhat different. But what's the business outcome? The same. So when the business says, oh, you just did this major implementation, what was the value you got? Well, we were able to reduce our heads by 0.25. We cut off a quarter of a head. That's not value. We might see it as value, but we have to know this is where we came from. We have to think about getting away from counting heads and making heads count. So around the world, people say, if I could just get a global headcount report, if I could just get a global headcount report, if I could just get a global headcount report. We just need to know how many people we have. Why do you need to know that? You might need to know it for your CEO so he or she can give a presentation. But what's more valuable is to understand how to make those people count. If you can make those people count, that's the value you should be looking for. Now, I'm not saying don't do a headcount report. It's nice to know how many things you have, people. But how do we make heads count? Do you realize that we all have better We all have better technology. I said this a few minutes ago to a different session. We all have better technology in the palm of our hands than our company gives us, right? We all have better technology in the palm of our hands than our company gives us. Now, think about that. Old processes, 970 processes. Raise your hand if you've reinvented all 970 processes to take advantage of the fact that people now have this in their hand. Raise your hand. Sir, everyone raised their hand except you. No, just kidding. No one raised their hand. We haven't done it. We have designed, do you remember, the only way we've been able to roll out HR processes in the past is through paper. Everyone remember paper? Forms? Like, it was too hard. Like, does everyone remember discs? Like, we'd have to walk around to every single computer and put the discs in. There was no way to distribute processes to people. So, all of our processes, for the most part, are designed for the wrong audience. And that's not, you shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't be like, oh no. You should be like, okay, cool. Now there's new technology. You know, no one walked in the room with a fax machine here. That's how they're communicating today. Technology evolves. Our processes have to evolve. So when we think about it, is HR dead or dying? I say that this is the most magical time ever to be in HR, and especially HR technology. Because think about manufacturing. Manufacturing systems are on their 10th generation. 10th generation. Human capital management systems are on their 2nd generation. So we're just getting started. So anything I say, you shouldn't walk away from this presentation saying, oh, we've made so many mistakes. Or, oh, our processes are so bad. We should walk away saying, in order to move forward, what we need to do is think about and recognize these things and say together as a community, here's where we're going. Now, does everyone remember Y2K? Remember Y2K? Come on. Does anyone remember Y2K? Yeah. Year 2000 it stood for. Where were you on December 31st, 1999, Daniel? In church. Good place to be. Where were you on December 31st, 1999? In an office. Leslie, where were you? An office. Where were you? Oh, I'm sorry? Oh, client site. I thought you said dancing. I was like, cool, someone was having fun. Client site. So I worked for a payroll company at the time, and I was sitting watching a mainframe. No, not knowing what I would do is if something went wrong. But how long did the Y2K phenomenon last after January 1st, 2000? Like we were kind of done talking about it for a while. Now, why? Because we prepared, right? We prepared. We spent trillions, trillions of dollars to say, we're going to be ready for Y2K. Now, who were the people that actually said, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready? Who were the people that said that? No one. Do you realize there was no governing body that said, well, you're Y2K compliant, well, you're Y2K compliant, you're Y2K compliant? But we spent trillions of dollars. So I thought, since people spent trillions of dollars on that, we should come up with our own. And I came up with Workplace 2020. This concept of Workplace 2020, we have to prepare. We should be spending, maybe not trillions, we don't need to spend that much. But we need to be thinking about how do we prepare for what the future of work looks like. The first way we do that is we stop talking about HR technology. We talk about workforce technology. When I say HR tech, now every time I say this, people say, do you realize you're speaking at an HR technology conference? And I say, yes. But we're all thinking about how do we engage the workforce, which means we have to think about workforce technology. If we call it HR technology, who's it for? HR. If we call it workforce technology, we're going to focus much more on technology for the workforce. So the first thing we have to do when it comes to people is think about the workforce. The next thing we have to do is realize that as an HR technology function, we will never be great at everything. I know that's hard. It's really, really hard. But think about everything we're responsible for, 970 processes. Are we going to be great at them all? Or is it okay to be good at one? So this exercise is so important when it comes to HR technology. If you took nothing else away from this, I would say if you can work with your HR leadership, or you as HR leaders work with your business and say, what is it that you want us to be great at? And what is it okay to be okay at? Raise your hand if you want to be best in the world at processing payroll. No. Do you know where most money is spent when it comes to HR technology? Payroll. Not necessarily bad or good, just a fact. So what do I want to be great at versus what do I want to be performing at? The second thing, how many of you, raise your hand if you have a workforce technology strategy? And what a workforce technology strategy is it's made up of people, process, and technology. It lasts 3 years, and the whole business knows exactly where we're going. Raise your hand if we have that. So there's one person that raised their hand. That, my friends, is a tragedy. Truly a tragedy. If you don't have a strategy in place, the last thing you should be worrying about is selecting the right vendor. Sorry to be so blunt. But if you don't have a 3-year strategy that says, here's what I want to be great at, here's who we're going to serve, here's what our outcomes are going to be, here's how we're ready for it, the last thing you should be doing is thinking about who the right vendor is. Because I guarantee you, you will not be successful. The vendor doesn't create your success. You create your success, which is the people side. The exercise where I had you close your eyes, every company has its own company signature. You know how everyone's signature is different? Every company's is different. So people always, when I travel the world, people say, what vendor should I choose? And like that, you don't answer that question without 10 more questions. Does that make sense? It's like, who should I marry? You. No, you're like, oh no. No, but you can't answer that question without a lot more questions. So which vendor do I choose? It's all based on this. Do I have how valuable is talent management? How valuable is my IT department? What role does IT play? Like, there's gazillions of questions. But it's important to know what your company's signature looks like. it's important to think about what is your technographic, not your demographic. A lot of people say, oh, has anyone ever heard this? Our workforce is old. They won't do that stuff. They don't use their phones. Has anyone ever heard this? They'll never do it. That, my friends, I don't know if this word translates in India, is bull-loney. I'm not going to say it. It's baloney. We're all using our technology every single day. Now, is the value proposition there for them to use it? Maybe not, which means they wouldn't use it. How many of you download apps from an app store ever? Anyone? Everyone, right? What's your name? I'm sorry? Nano. So Nano, if you download an app from the App Store and you don't like it, what do? Delete it. Brilliant. And then how often do you download it again to see if it got better? Never. Not much. Same thing with HR technology. If someone goes to use it and they don't like it, what do they say? No, I don't see any value. And then when do they go back? Never. Unless you do an amazing job of change management and marketing. So technographic is how technically with it are your people. It doesn't mean do they have devices or not, but don't roll out social tools if your people are afraid to talk of the culture of your company. Don't roll out talent management tools if all of your HR talent processes won't benefit those people. How many of you try to roll out a talent profile? I want to get a profile of my talent. It's one of the most interesting things I get to watch. People roll it out, and then what do they do after the employees spend all the time putting the data in? What does the talent management group do with it? Nothing. They hire someone else. Now, how often is someone going to keep going back and updating that dumb talent profile if your actions don't match it? So the technographic of your people is huge. Most HR functions today don't have the right skills to actually do this stuff. So when you guys said 57% or whatever that number was are interested in choosing the right vendor, I'd ask if you have these skills. First of all, do you have holistic thinking? What holistic thinking is basically my talent acquisition. Actually, let me ask it this way. In your organization, how many times is name entered? The name of an employee. Raise your hand if it's entered 0 times by anyone that works for your company. Raise your hand if it's entered at least 5. Name. Just the name of the person. Raise your hand if it's only entered once and it goes everywhere else. Raise your hand if you have no idea what my question means. Holistic thinking means I think systematically, and I basically say, I should enter name 0 times. If someone's applying for the job online and they put in Jason Averbook, when you go to hire Jason Averbook, that should flow where? To your core HR system. It should flow to your procurement system. It should flow to your finance system. It should flow everywhere. Yet in most organizations, I rekey data in different systems. Holistic thinking basically means I break down those silos and say, how do I think about a process end to end, a journey? Storytellers. This is one of the most sought after skills, and if you can get good at this, you're going to make a lot of money. Why is this so important right now? Because we have more data than we've ever had, and people are dying to understand what it means. But to hand them a report doesn't work. They need someone to tell them a story in their language. So how do I tell a story that says, this data shows me that 54% of people in India care about choosing the right vendor, yet no one has a strategy? How do I tell that story in a good way? Someone can tell me over a cocktail later. Storyteller, really, really important. Design thinking. It's that end to end to end. How many of you shop online? I used this example earlier in the session I was doing. When you shop online, let's say you go to Amazon. Amazon has one page. How many of you, who shops at Amazon? Cool. Who can I pick on? Did you say you shop at Amazon? No. Did you say you shop at? Okay. What's the last thing you bought at Amazon, if you care to share?
Yeah, I bought some dried fruits.
Dried fruits. Interesting. Okay, dried fruits. So think about what Amazon does when it comes to design thinking. So Amazon says, what's your name? Samil. Samil is going to go buy some dry fruits. Now, Amazon's even getting smart enough where just looking at Samil, he says he needs dry fruits. Like, that's how smart it's getting. But let's skip that one for a second. But it knows that when he goes to look for dried fruits, what kind of fruit?
So it's various kind of, the kishmish and the anjeer, and kind of.
Let's say he's looking for a banana. Sorry, I'm going to use my...
That's another dry fruit.
Okay, you guys all know what dried fruits are. When I do the search for dried fruits, what am I doing? I type in dried fruit, what happens? Gives me a list. What is that? That's a report. Now, what if he had to call IT to get that report? He'd already abandoned, right? He'd go somewhere else. So quickly, he's getting a report. Now, once he has a list, what's the next thing he wants to do? He wants to read about the dried fruits, right? That's called knowledge. There's knowledge right there about the dried fruits. Once he actually reads about the dried fruit, then he wants to see what others have said about the dried fruits, right? Those are reviews. Is everyone following? Okay. The next thing it says is people that bought this dried fruit also bought this dried fruit. That's an analytic. Real time. And then the last thing is the transaction, which is the buy button. Now, how many places does he go to do that? One. Now, take that back to HR. Knowledge. Where do I have all my policies and procedures stored? My intranet. The black hole. What are my collaboration tools? Email, phone, maybe, next door. Where are my analytics? Another whole system, maybe. And then where's the transaction? Another system, maybe. So do you see what we've done? We haven't applied design thinking to HR. We've just thrown stuff out there and expect people to use it. So when we think about this, this is so crucial going forward. How do I create these journeys? Marketing. The only way you get people to do stuff is to market it. And when you market it, you can't market it as HR, you have to market it as the value to them. What's in it for me? What's in it for me as the workforce? And I have to move people from adoption to addiction. Because you're all addicted to your devices. We all are addicted to our devices. So how do I stop measuring adoption and start measuring addiction? So that's people. The next component is process. Does everyone know what BBE is? Brawn-based economy to brain-based economy. As I move from a brawn-based economy to a brain-based economy, my processes have to change. Why? Because I'm not measuring how good you are at working at a machine. I'm measuring your knowledge. I'm trying to know who you are. I'm trying to know what the value of you is. So poll number 2. Take out your devices again. How prepared are you to create processes designed for today's workforce? So based on what I just went through, and what I just started talking about with brawn versus brain, how many of you would say you're very prepared to create processes? You're prepared or not very prepared? We'll get your votes in real quick. See how fast we can do this. 35% prepared, 7% no idea if we're prepared, 41% not very prepared. So this is good. Well, I mean, it's not good. It's not good when the first one is not prepared, but there is some preparedness. Let's say 40%, about average. 40%, I'm sorry, that's not right. Yeah, 40% prepared. If we take prepared and very prepared, 45%. So 45% of you are ready. 55% of you don't know what I'm talking about or are not prepared. which means, once again, you're not ready to select a vendor. Now, I'm not anti-vendor by any means. You should all be leveraging technology. But what I am for is, how do you think about when is the right time to select a vendor based on where your organization is? So thank you for that poll. Let's go on to the slides again. I like to think of it this way. When you think about your processes, which of your processes need to be timeless and which ones are agile? The last time there's been an innovation in payroll, long time ago. The last time there's been an innovation in changing your address, a long time ago. The last time there's been an innovation in performance management and recruiting, last night. So if you're an organization, you have to think about which of your processes you want to design as timeless. How many of you have employee self-service? Anyone? Okay, do you know what the number one employee self-service transaction rolled out is? Changing your address. So, sir, when's the last time you changed your address? 1 year ago. When's the last time you changed your address?
We just recently did one for the entire organization.
No, you personally changed. When did you move last?
I joined about
2 years ago. When's the last time you changed your address?
6 years ago.
6 years ago. When's the last time you changed your address? 4 or 5 years ago. How about you? 1 year ago. Think about if you use a piece of technology every 1 year. Are you going to love it? Are you going to get excited about it? Are you going to remember it? So, number one, changing your address. Number two, having a baby. When's the last time you had a... Oh, no. And number three, getting married. When's the last time you got married? Long years. So, and then when our employees say, oh, we don't really see this of value, or we don't think it's got a great user experience. Anything you use once every never, or once every long years, people aren't going to find value in. So think about this as you're creating your processes and say, how do I think differently about my processes? Every organization is in I say talent management X.X, which means everyone's scattered across the board. I'm going to show this video, and I'm going to ask a few people afterwards what this has to do with talent management. Let's go ahead and start the video.
There are rich teams, and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. And then there's us.
That's $1, man.
What?
Welcome to Oakland.
I need more money.
We're not New York. Find players with the money that we do have.
I like Perez.
Got an ugly girlfriend. Ugly girlfriend means no confidence.
You guys are talking the same old nonsense like we're looking for Fabio. We got to think differently.
Who's Fabio?
Your goal shouldn't be to buy players. Your goal should be to buy wins. And in order to buy wins, you need to buy runs.
Who are you?
I'm Peter Brand.
First job in baseball?
It's my first job anywhere.
We're gonna shake things up. Why don't you walk me through the board?
I believe there's a championship team that we could afford because everyone else undervalues them, like an island of misfit toys.
We want you at first base.
I've only ever played catcher.
It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash.
It's incredibly hard.
He can't throw.
But what can he do?
You want me to speak?
We're not pointing you yet.
He gets on base.
We are card counters at the blackjack table. We're gonna turn the odds on the casino. I'm heading in. Text me the play-by-play.
Wait, what?
I don't watch the games.
Billy Bean has tried to reinvent a system that's been working for years. It was a nice theory, just not working out.
How long is Billy Bean gonna last?
He's proven himself right out of a job.
In their minds, it's threatening the game. It's threatening the way that they do things.
Hey, Daddy, do you think you'll lose your job?
What? Where did you hear that?
Well, I go on the internet sometimes.
Don't go on the internet. Watch TV or talk to people.
You're discounting what scouts have done for 150 years?
What the hell am I doing?
What is happening in Oakland? It defies everything we know about baseball.
Just plain crazy.
If we win with this team, we'll change the game. This better work. I'm just kidding.
So what does that have to do with talent management? It has everything to do with talent management. changing the way I've been thinking for 150 years. I want you to say that to yourself. What the hell am I doing? Because the only way to get a competitive advantage when it comes to your people is to think different, than others. And get out of doing things the way you've done them from a status quo. Your managers and your leaders could care less about your silos, recruiting, performance, learning. Do you realize that? That's you. They don't care about that. Do you think they care about your requirements? When you go and talk to vendors, how many of you think you ask for things that you might not use? Anyone? Any of you use Microsoft Word? What percentage of Microsoft Word do you use? On average, it's 3%. What percentage of Excel do you use? On average, it's 1%. So when you think about talking to vendors about requirements, ask yourself this: is it really a requirement? Let's go ahead and watch this video real quick. I'm going to stop it after about 30 seconds.
Our company has a new strategic initiative to increase market penetration, maximize brand loyalty, and enhance intangible assets. In pursuit of these objectives, we've started a new project for which we require 7 red lines. I understand your company can help us in this matter.
Of course. Walter here will be the project manager. Walter, we can do this, can't we?
Yes, of course. Anderson here is our expert in all matters related to the drawing of red lines. We've brought him along today to share his professional opinion.
Nice to meet you. Well, you all know me. This is Justine, our company's design specialist. Hello. We need you to draw 7 red lines, all of them strictly perpendicular, some with green ink and some with transparent. Can you do that?
No, I'm afraid...
Let's not rush into any hasty answers, Anderson. The task has been set and needs to be carried out. At the end of the day, you are an expert.
The term red line implies the color of the line to be red. To draw a red line with green ink is, well, if it's not exactly impossible, it's pretty close to being impossible.
What does that even mean? Impossible?
I mean, it is possible. There are some people, say, suffering from color blindness, for whom the color of the lines doesn't really make a difference. But I'm quite sure that the target audience of your project doesn't consist solely of such people.
So in principle, this is possible.
I'll simplify. A line as such can be drawn with absolutely any ink, but if you want to get a red line, you need to use red ink.
What if we draw them with blue ink?
It still won't work. If you use blue ink, you'll get blue lines.
Okay, enough of that. You get the point.
Exactly
Hopefully you get the point of that, which is when you're sitting developing your requirements, what is the value? It has to equal, this V word, value, is so important. Someone asked me earlier today the question of customization versus configuration. And I responded, you can customize all day long. But is the reason you're customizing for value? Or is the reason you're customizing because you want 7 red lines? Because someone told you you need 7 red lines. And then you say, why do I need 7 red lines? If you actually watch the rest of the video, they don't even know why they ever needed 7 red lines. A lot of us go through this process not knowing why we're doing things and getting to value. Consumerism is so important. We have to think like consumers, and to do that, it means we have to stop putting lipstick on a pig, which means taking our existing processes and trying to put them out there for people. Don't blame the vendor, blame you. It's all about your people and process. So let's move on to, let's go on to this next poll. I think this will be really interesting. When it comes to, talent management, how holistic, which means end-to-end, no silos, is your process? Completely holistic? We work in silos? Somewhat holistic. Congratulations, 4%. That's good. 6%. This silo stuff kills you. Does everyone realize that? Think about when people apply for a job online. You apply for a job online, you put in all your skills, everywhere you used to work, every place you ever went to school. And then once you apply and you bring that data over to your HR system, what do you bring over? Most organizations just bring over enough to get the person paid, if they bring anything, or maybe just the name. What happens to all that other stuff? Where you went to school, what your skills were, what you wanted to be when you grow up? Where's all that? Lost. That's called leakage. Now, some people could go back and do a report on the recruiting system if you think holistically. But in many organizations, what they do is they launch another process to say, we really need to figure out the skills of our people. No, you don't. You had that. You just didn't bring them all the way over. So for a lot of you have heard me say this before, LinkedIn knows more about your people than you do. Raise your hand if you've ever heard people are our most important asset. Why are you laughing? Okay, so take this asset. This asset here, has everyone seen an asset tag? You know, where you scan it. So take your laptop, for example. Take a laptop. Your laptop has an asset tag. You scan it. How much could you sell your laptop for if you go out on the street? Almost nothing. But it's there. Now, scan it. It shows you how much hard disk space you have, how much email you've sent, how much memory you have, who you bought it from, how much it's worth, et cetera, all by scanning an asset tag. And then I come over here and I scan Nano's head like this, beep, and what do I get? Nothing. Not because of you, but because my systems aren't tied together. So I know more about my dumb laptop, which is worth nothing, than I do about my people. That's sad. Because remember, people are your most important asset? But I know more about my laptop. So who knows more about your people than you do? LinkedIn. Now, if LinkedIn knows more about your people than you do, who else knows more about your people than you do? Your competition. So in a company, when the CEO says people are our most important asset, and you say our competition knows more about them than we do, that sounds really stupid. So when you think about what you're trying to do from a talent standpoint, you're trying to understand your people. Let's go back to the slides. You're trying to know your people. So technology, where are we at from technology? Everyone remembers these disks. When I first started in this space, when I built Windows software, does everyone know what Windows are? Windows it was an operating system. It's not the glass. It's an operating system. Windows. When we wanted to distribute software, we put it on disks. The first HR system I ever built was on 47 of those disks. Insert disk 1, take out disk 1, insert disk 2. Does anyone still do this? You're at the wrong conference if you are. Hopefully not. And if I was missing disk 30, what was I? I was screwed. I was in trouble. Now, all that being said, now we've moved to this. The cloud saves our life. How many of you use the cloud? Okay, every single person in the world uses the cloud. Now, why is that? Because these don't have disk drives, right? Have you ever tried to put a CD-ROM in this? It won't work. We all use the cloud, but the cloud doesn't make software. This is a really obvious thing to say, but for some reason I need to say it. People always say, if we could just get to the cloud, everything will be great. The cloud is like disks. On that disk could be something really good or it could be really bad. The cloud software could be really good or it could be really bad. Somehow the cloud became like, oh, let's just get to the cloud. The cloud is a delivery system. The cloud alone isn't the answer to the storm. Many of us sleep with our devices. Okay? The cloud helps us do that. In the world we live in today, when it comes to technology, when I went through initially and I said people, process, technology, the reason I did it in that order is because that is the resource allocation you should be spending. You should be spending 40 to 45% of your time and resource on people, which is change management, marketing, and governance. You should be spending 45% of your time on process, which is design thinking, which is thinking about the consumer, designing things for the workforce. And you should be spending about 10 to 15% on technology. Does that make sense? If you flip it around, you're putting all of your effort on technology, but you're not tying any of it to those other components. Someone once did this little exercise for me. If you take A-grade technology and you spend no time on people and process, what grade does the company give your initiative? A D to an F. A technology, but the company gives it a D to an F. And who do you blame? The vendor. Or the implementation partner. If you take C-grade technology and you spend A grade on people and process, what's the overall grade? It's probably going to be a B to a C. You're going to be better off. So it's really important to think about this. Now, many organizations, and this was one of the questions on the tweet chat yesterday, that says, our IT department's so slow they can't do any of this. My response to you is we all need to be technologists. The gentleman that looked for dried fruit, he ran that report himself. He didn't call IT. We all experience technology every day. You're all tweeting. So, do you think raise your hand if you think you're a technologist. By the way, technologist doesn't mean you code. Technologist means you understand that everything that goes around us revolves on technology, and I'm constantly thinking about how to put that into play in my job. That's what a technologist is. So on the count of 3, I'd like you all to say, we are technologists. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Not enough conviction. Thank you. Thank you. He said it, not me. We'll try one more time. 1, 2, 3. Yes, that's why you're here. You're here because you're technologists, but that doesn't mean you only care about the technology. It means you care about digitization and where the workforce is going. Now, many people just jump into upgrades. Don't just upgrade. I think that upgrades, all they do is continue to cover up these sins. Does that make sense? When you upgrade, all you do is just move to the next thing and cover up all these things. We need to reset where we are. So number 4, I already know the answer to this poll based on one of the things I asked. Do you feel you have a workforce technology strategy for the next 3 years? Or are you more tactical in nature? So we have a strategy. We need to create a strategy. We're very tactical. We live day to day. It's kind of funny now when no one has to raise their hand. Now the answers might look a little bit different. We need to create a strategy. We have a strategy at 27%. We're very tactical. We live day to day. The only way to pull all of this together, people, process, and technology, is to have that strategy. So that top button, 40%, that should be what you're thinking about the rest of this conference. For the next 3 years, how do you want this all to look? And how do I do it from a people, process, and technology standpoint? Let's go back to the slides if we could. I want to end with data. How many of you love data? Raise your hand. You just love it. Like, I can't get enough of data. Anyone? That might be a little overblown. But data is the new capital. And if you don't love data, you're in the wrong space. Data is the new capital. It's going to make or break our success. So you have to be able to do this and think this. Data is sexy. People that think about data and understand data, like, wow, how did you know that? Oh, I had some data. Now, you don't show them the dumb data. You're like, well, I have this data in my head. How do you know there's 970 processes in the average HR department? Oh, you've got some data. Like, it sounds really cool to have all that. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to storytelling. So watch this video real quick. Let me go back, start it again. Take this really, really seriously, because it's probably one of the most important videos I'm going to show.
Peter, come take a look at this. Mr. Daniels.
Look at this.
What's this? The numbers, they keep getting bigger and bigger.
Clicks are off the charts.
Yeah.
Yoshi, it's Walter. We're back.
I need more trees. More, please. I'll get you more trees.
Hey, take a look at wood pulp.
Everything you got on wood pulp right now.
He really loves that thing.
Data, right? That's data. That's data. But what's really important about that is notice how easy we could be measuring the wrong thing. Or how easy we could take action on data if we don't really understand what that data is. So when we think about data, it's so important to say, what do we want to measure? And there's two things in HR to measure. There's the measure of yourself, which is you looking in the mirror. Like when you looked in the mirror this morning, you probably looked in the mirror, you're like, oh, I look good, right? Yeah, you measured yourself, right? When you measure things in HR, like time to fill, cost per hire, what are you doing? You're measuring yourself, right? So that's one measurement. And that, for the most part, measures efficiency. But the next thing you measure is effectiveness. And effectiveness is what's the business impact that you're providing. So I worked with a major insurance company in the United States. They reduced their time to fill from 52 days to 37 days. Good or bad? They reduced their time to fill from 52 to 37, which is 15 days. And then I went to a go-live party. Anyone ever been to a go-live party? They're awesome. No, just kidding. Go live. By the way, go live parties, most people think go live parties are the end of a project. That's the start of a project. It's a whole different mindset shift. But we went to the CEO. We said, we reduced your time from 52 days to 37 days to hire insurance agents. And you know what the CEO said to us? It takes 37 days to fill a job here. Just like that. Have you ever heard of an OSM? An OSM is an oh shit moment. That's what I had, because I was the project sponsor. I was like, yeah, we reduced it to 37 days. He's like, it takes 37 days? So we went back and we said, 15 days, 750 insurance agents, $1,500 per day they generate. So by reducing time to fill by 15 days, we generated $4 million. And you know what he said? Brilliant. I never want HR to come to me with a measure of themselves. I want HR to come to me with a measure of the impact on the business. It's a very, very important lesson, and I always say, how do you get to the other side of the equation? So this whole concept of big data, really where it's going is we're going to turn big data into fast data and actionable data. What does fast data mean? All fast data means is, now remember I already saw who won the iPad? That was pretty fast, wasn't it? If you do something like performance reviews once a year, that's not very fast. If you measure engagement once a year, that's not very fast. And then you expect people to do something with year-old data, that's not very good. So fast data and then actionable data. How do we write a prescription? So HR needs to tell the business, based on what the data shows, here's how we did this. This AI, everyone's heard of AI? Artificial intelligence? Just so the fact, if any of you have ever got up and given a speech, AI tells you there's a big, big thing flashing right in front of my face that says time's up. It makes you sweat twice as much. I know that's why you're sitting there too, sorry. By the way, that's AI. Is that you? Did you do that? You're AI. No, artificial intelligence or automated intelligence. This is going to help us. The more data we have, The more data we have, the better technology is going to be in helping us understand what it means. But guess what? It's still going to require people. So people always say, we're going to lose our jobs, the robots are going to take over, et cetera, et cetera. They will make your job easier. But at the end of the day, it's those that will win will be, how do I take automated intelligence, add the human component to it, to then say, what is the impact on the business? So what we've covered, the perfect storm, the big three: people, governance, change management, marketing. Process, how do I reinvent my processes and think differently? And last, technology. What do I really need right now to meet those top two? At the end of the day, those three things together create success. So as I said at the opening, I think this is the most magical time ever for the human capital space. Why do I think that? We're just getting the data to be able to make the right decisions. You all here at this conference have the opportunity to buy and to leverage technology to put you in that position to have that competitive edge. If all you do is do the same thing you've been doing in the past, or you don't think about the people and process stuff, for the most part, we're just going to relive another generation. So I think our future is now. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great rest of the conference. Do we have time to take a few questions that have come in? I'm sorry? Oh, at the SHRM booth. Okay, good. So we've got a lot of questions that have come in, a lot of likes, attention economy, a lot of likes. So we'll take those at the conference. So once again, thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Jason Averbook, ladies and gentlemen, please a big round of applause. Talk about an explosive start